Are you going to take this thing through to a PFS like you've got, track record of doing?
I mean,
or?
I'm not going to kid ourselves. Our real focus is to really build out a resource. Time's money. The longer you're out there, the more shares are going to be issued. You really want to execute. And I do have the bench strength of our technical team. So we're moving very, very quickly.
What's the so what bit for you? What are you going to do that others can't? Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. That helps us understand if this is the sort of video that you would like us to be producing for you. You can also leave your comments below to help us with the sorts of questions you think we should be asking, how you think we're doing, and of course what you thought of Eloro Resources. You can catch this as a podcast, an article, and a transcription on cruxinvestor.com. And of course, for our Crux Investor members, you get early access to this video and lots of other services. And if you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and for more videos like this one, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to Tom Larsen, CEO of Eloro Resources. They're an exploration play listed on TSX-V. They have assets in Bolivia and also in Peru. The Peruvian assets being farmed into by another Australian company. We get into a bit of detail about how that's progressing and what their expectations are by the end of this year. And that's called La Victoria. ISKA ISKA is their core focus for them down in Bolivia. Again, it's a silver gold polymetallic play. Tom talks to us about searching for scale. They've raised a little bit of money recently with the help of Dr. Quinton Hennigh to be able to drill that out and sort of see what they've got. We talked to them about their business model, where they're going to check out and what they're going to have to do before they do that. Fairly tight share structure, and we're hearing from Tom that he'd like it to remain that way. So take a look at the description at some of the topics discussed. Anything interests you in particular, click the number beside the topic. That's called a timestamp, and that jumps you to that part of the video. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy what Tom has to say. Tom, how are you doing, sir?
Matthew, good to see you.
Thank you. Well, thanks for coming on the show. So we've not spoken before or heard this story before, so looking forward to hearing all about it. So where in the world are you today?
I'm in Switzerland here for another few weeks. Then I'll be back to Toronto, where we've been here for a few months, just hibernating somewhat, but quite enjoying it.
I bet.
Under the current circumstances.
See, you're sort of trapped there, are you? Is that
Not really trapped. Just traveling back and forth, traveling back to Canada right now. There's I don't think, urgency right now. We're getting a lot of work done here and enjoying the hiking and that sort of thing. So,
gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah,
have you had that heat wave? We've experienced this European
I'm in the heat wave right now, and unfortunately, in Switzerland, we don't have air conditioning.
Oh boy.
So
yeah.
Bear with me if you see the odd bead of sweat.
You and me both, sir. You and me both. It's like 35
here in London. So
dying.
Same thing. No, no.
It's terrific. And this beautiful shade of pink for all the wrong reasons. Well, look, why don't we kick off? Give us that 1 minute overview. What are you? Tell us all about it.
Sure. I'm founder of a company called Eloro Resources. We're a South American-focused resource company, explorer, developer. Basically at the early stages, trying to enhance assets, primarily in Bolivia, a major project in Bolivia, and another big project in north central Peru. Okay,
what's your track record? Where are you from?
I started off way back when as a graduate of Queen's University economics, and in the 80s I was a broker, and that's where I sort of learned my the whole thing about the resource sector. That's where I really started enjoying that aspect of things, and the banking system sort of took over the old traditional brokerage houses. So at that point in '92, I moved over across the street and started into a company I started running called Northfield Minerals. That ended up in the 90s becoming a TSX listed 250 million market cap company. Our properties were located in the Destor Porcupine Fault area of the Abitibi in northeastern Ontario, close by the world famous Crux mine. So we spent about 8 years on that. So that's where I sort of learned to build a team and build resources. And then we continued with another company called NFX Gold, similar track record, ran that until 2006, again in that region. Where I sort of branched off a little bit from the precious metals sector was getting involved in the iron ore space. I was a founder and financier of a company called Champion Minerals that we took public. It's in the Labrador Trough, properties that were formerly Quebec Cartier, taken out by Dofasco. We were able to pick properties up through a fellow called Pat Sheridan Sr. I had a lot of respect for that fellow who really helped us along, and we built Champion Minerals from a resource stage into a 5 billion ton inferred resource. We took it to a pre-feasibility study on one of the projects. We had a good following, but the iron ore price at the time between 2006 and 2012 was in our favor. So that went very well. Subsequently merged that with a group out of Australia, a fellow called Michael O'Keefe, who now is the executive chairman and has done a brilliant job on the growth path of Champion. It's $1 billion plus market cap today, producing over 7-8 million tons of concentrate a year.
Okay, but now you're in South America, Bolivia and Peru. Why are you there? What have you set out to try and build?
Well, I think after my experience, being in the precious metal sector, but also seeing the size potential, the scale that I witnessed when I was involved with Champion. Size is what really attracted me to, in going forward with any other projects, which I obviously took on after I stepped down from Champion. I always had a belief in some of the big systems down in primarily the Peru Cordilleran Belt. We had an opportunity to become involved through a group of people I knew very well that were involved with the La Victoria project, a low sulfidation, large epithermal system in an area that had attracted some major mining companies. Barrick at the time had Lagunas Norte, La Perina. These are world-class deposits. Tahoe Resources had the they had the La Arena Shawindo deposits 50 kilometers north of us. Newmont, Milpro, Fresnillo, all these companies were in this particular area. And we had an opportunity to earn 100% interest in a 90 square kilometer area, which we took on. But before I delved into this, and dove into this at least in 2014-15 after Champion, I basically contacted an old friend of mine, Dr. William Pearson, who has extreme experience with large epithermal and Andean type mineral systems. I wanted to see if he was interested. I worked with him 20 years earlier when I was running Northfield. He was my chief technical advisor then. And he was basically retiring. And I talked him into joining me, and thank God he said yes, and we moved forward technically with something that we believe is quite exciting, being La Victoria project.
Right, but in fact, let's break down those two things. So you've got La Victoria, which is in Peru. You've got ISKA ISKA, which is in Bolivia. What's going to be the focus of the business? Are you going to be able to manage to take both of those forward, or are you going to have to focus on one initially?
I mean, ISKA ISKA has been a recent, not acquisition, but an earn-in play for us. This came about we've been spending 3-4 years working away on the Peruvian project, and we were having issues in 2018 with a community in the northern part of the property where our target was up on the Altiplano, where we really believe that was potentially the big play for us. We couldn't get permission, we couldn't get land purchase rental agreements. So we ended up sort of stagnating for a number of months. Our share cap dropped down. We were at one point, trading over $1. We were lightly, we've always I've always believed in a tightly held share cap initially with these things. We probably had 25 million shares at the time. So We decided to look maybe for a hedge, look for another project while we're waiting it out to try and get the community and people on side with our main focus, our La Victoria. That's how in, I think it was April, May of 2019, we became involved with this project in Bolivia. The reason that we chose Bolivia was that a friend of Dr. Pearson's, Dr. Osvaldo Arce, he being a Bolivian, born and raised in Bolivia, president of the Bolivian Geological Society. His father was the head fellow at the national manager for Comabol, the state-owned mining arm of the Bolivian government. Dr. Osvaldo had written books on different deposits in Bolivia, southern Bolivia primarily, which is deemed as the world's largest jurisdiction for silver deposits such as Cerro Rico, San Cristobal. He had been on our property, hired by us a year prior in Peru. So we knew him fairly well. We approached him about finding a project that wouldn't break the bank, but could give us some really, again, scale upside that he might know of. And, that was our foray into Bolivia, because we got him at the right time. And we did some due diligence on a project called ISKA ISKA in 40 kilometers north of Tupiza in the department of Potasi, where you have the likes of Pan American Silver and such. So we did a $100,000 due diligence program in the summer of 2019. We liked what we saw, some great multi-metal samples, 3-meter averages that came back to us. We decided to move forward. So Dr. Osvaldo, who had worked on this particular property, 9 square kilometer silver polymetallic prospect, never been drilled. He basically knew the property. 2016 was hired to look at it. Private ownership, no royalty, road accessible. He thought this would be ideal for Eloro in our situation at the time.
I'm not quite clear. Are you saying that you have kind of segued focus from Peru to Bolivia now as a result of issues in Peru? And ISKA ISKA is the core focus, yeah?
And today, because of what we've developed, the due diligence process and the deal that we basically completed in January of 2020 on ISKA ISKA, it's drill ready. Underground, old colonial underground workings have been modernized somewhat. So we are ready to move quickly on a drilling program. So that's why our focus right now is primarily on ISKA ISKA. But as I say this, I just want to step back on one point of the Peru project, in that we had brought in a partner in 2017, early 2018, at the asset level to finance in the tune of $5 million to earn up to a 25% interest in the asset of in the La Victoria property. This is an Australian public company called Eloro Resources. Michael O'Keefe was involved with that and instrumental in bringing them to us, the CEO or the current chairman of Champion. And so through that, we were able to finance and work an initial drill campaign. As I mentioned, the latter part, the more favored area, we were having troubles with the community up at the 4,200 meter level, community of Payasca, with a former president who's no longer there. We couldn't drill, and that's when we stagnated basically for about 14 to 18 months. However, we are now about to lock up a land purchase rental agreement, or a land rental agreement, with the new incoming president, who's been notarized in the local town of Chimbote, and we will be able to actually go after and start drilling that project. I expect that will be funded via our friends down in Australia to earn their 25% interest.
Got it. So let's given that's not the focus, can we just, I want to be able to park that up and get back to the kind of key project with ISKA ISKA. So your Australian partners have signed a what? What sort of agreement?
Definitive agreement to earn.
Definitive. Okay, great. So they've agreed $5 million. Are they good for it? I mean, what can you tell us about them?
Already spent. They've earned into about 18% of the we refined the 5 million with because of suddenly the delays. So they now they've spent roughly 2.5 million so far in the last year and a half, 2 years. They now own an 18% interest in the asset of La Victoria, but they have the right to go up to 25% by spending a further 1.4 million Canadian.
So what process are they going through? Because I mean, 2.5 million over 2 years, they're not exactly piling into this thing. So how long do they have before they need to have spent their 5 million?
Well, they have basically 45 days from when we sign off on the land surface agreement with the local town, the land rental agreement. And then from there, I mean, $1.4 million will work out to about close to 2,500 meters of drilling, which we expect to have completed by the end of the year. So they'll earn in by the end of the year.
Okay, and what's 2,500 meters going to tell you?
It'll give us an outline of the San Marquito. It's about 1.5 kilometers of basically an anticline, which is it's about a 300-meter mineralized, widthwise mineralized envelope of gold, silver, in a Chimu type of sandstone rock. So that'll tell us, should give us an initial inferred resource. But these are very typical of most of the mines in the area. And remember, almost every mountain peak that we see, all the way up to about 40 kilometers up to the to Lake Tahoe, or Tahoe Resources, being Pan American Silver's two mining operations. There's probably 8 or 9 producing mines in the area. Some of the lowest cost mining in the world. So this is the sort of thing we're looking at.
Okay, I bet you'd rather be at Lake Tahoe right now with this heat. So that's the end of the year. That is a silver play, or is that also polymetallic?
No, it's an epithermal low sulfidization, silver gold.
Okay. Right, and then what happens at the end of this year? They need, obviously, a great environment for silver and gold at the moment to raise capital. Are they thinking of that? Do they need to do that to be able to move it to the next stage after the end of the year?
You know, look, we're the operators. We will end up with 75%. They would end up with 25%. We will have to see, what takes place with this 2,500, 3,000 meters of drilling at San Marquito. Basically, it's been analyzed and been looked at for 3 years. We have high hopes for it, but we'll just see what comes of it. If it works out initially that it warrants another $2-3 million of future drilling to enhance the asset, then that's what will take place, whether with them or without them. I mean, it's 75-25. That'll be a 75-25 JV going forward.
Okay, so your point is that you don't necessarily want to keep offloading this asset. Well, it depends what happens at the end of this year is what you're saying. You want to keep optionality on that decision making until then. Okay, understood. We'll come back to that at another date. So let's come to ISKA. So that's again silver, gold. You're talking about gold, silver, and base metal deposits in your PowerPoint, but I guess in the current market, you're emphasizing the silver component, are you?
I've never heard the technical people that have been following this property recently. I'm just sort of blown away by some of the comments that I've been hearing from. I mean, even when we completed the definitive agreement for first part of January 2020. Fortunately, we were able to get Micon International, a mining engineering firm, down onto the property, and they completed an initial National Instrument 43-101 report before COVID set in and travel restrictions took place. So that report was completed in April. The Charlie Marawi, who's their senior economic geologist, one of them from Micon, was very, very impressed with what he saw. It's not every day that you find a project that's never been drilled with underground access. And when I say underground, shallow underground access. I mean, our drill campaign is going to be based on horizontal holes. But more importantly, when you take a look at the polymetallic aspect of this, I mean, it's the type of thing that, like there's 42 channel samples that we took from the underground. And, there was a smorgasbord of different metals, whether it was gold up to 28 gram, from 1 gram to 28 gram on 42% of those samples. Silver up to 600, 700 gram from 40 gram. Zinc, lead, bismuth, indium, copper. So if you can outline, and getting back to size potential, these are the types of things that create major tonnage. If you can sort of outline initially, and we're going to try and attempt to do this for the first 3,500 meters of drilling starting in about 4 weeks. A press release is going out now stating that we'll be drilling in about 4 weeks. If we can outline an initial 5-10 million tons, but we can show a value at the low end of those channel samples combined of $60. I mean, you take a look at, you do the math, 10 million, that's 600 million market cap, or 600 million valuation in the ground, 60 million market cap. And 10 million tons is just, I would probably think, we're hoping is going to be just the start of what we're looking for. The size potential.
So, I mean, who else is around there to kind of give you this level of confidence? Because with polymetallic comes complications. You've got to get the recoveries right. And, there's big capex somewhere down the line. So, who else is around there which gives us a sense of what could be?
Well, one of the major projects that's well recognized is the San Cristobal deposit, which is about 180, 200 kilometers away in the Department of Potosi, in the same mineralized belt. They have tonnage of around 350 million. They historically were the third largest silver mine in the world. But all their silver production, the cost came from the other metals, such as zinc and tin and things that they also separated and produced. I mean, we're going to have to do a lot of metallurgy, but let's get these results first. I mean, I'm not saying, look, that we're going to drill 3,500 meters and we're going to replicate San Cristobal with their metallurgy. I mean, there's lots of work to do, but I think we've got a good start.
I think that's my point. It's early days for you guys. You've got a lot of work ahead of you. I'm just trying to get a picture of what it is that you think that you're going to be capable of delivering or you're working towards. So talk to me about money. So how much money is in the company at the moment?
We basically, I mean, it was just family and friends for the last couple of years. That's why I've always sort of deemed myself in these things, these startups, because I've been involved in about 4 of them over the last 20 years. I always put money into them. And so I deem myself more as an entrepreneur than a promoter. But in our case, we basically we'd raised around $700,000 up until 2 or 3 months ago at, a low price of 25 cents. We were then introduced to a fellow called Quinton Hennigh through Dr. Quinton Hennigh, through an associate friend of both of ours who resides in Lausanne, Switzerland, who is quite well known in his own right. And he's been a shareholder of some of my companies in the past. He really loved the Bolivia concept, even though, Bolivia is deemed as a high-risk jurisdiction because of recent politics, but not recent, but politics from, a couple of years ago, a year ago. So he was very interested. He was involved in a company called Aztec Silver, which was the precursor to San Cristobal. That was Tom Kaplan and Larry Buchanan. They went up to $1 billion market cap just on the discovery and potential of San Cristobal in 2000 to 2008. So he introduced myself to Quinton. We had a conversation. I had Dr. Oswaldo Arque on the line, and he was, I was surprised because, I mean, we're always getting negatives from when we locked it up, going to the street a bit. People were a little concerned about Bolivia, never been drilled, no inferred resource. What are you guys doing? And so, it took time to, clarify the story, but Quinton got it immediately. And he did some checking. I mean, one of his big clients or investors is Sumitomo, that actually own the San Cristobal deposit. in Bolivia. And Sumitomo were involved in a couple of his other projects, like I think IRV in Japan, one or two others. So I think he did a little checking, wondering, okay, how bad is Bolivia? And but he came back to us, and I think he was very intrigued with the actual the strength of the mineralization of this polymetallic deposit from the sampling and what he saw. So he came back to me a few days later and asked how much money we needed, and our 43101 inferred resource, report, basically stated we need around $1 million US to complete the first pass 3,500 meter drilling campaign. So that's what I mentioned, around 1.5 million. So he introduced me to a fund of his down in Denver that he's associated with called Crescat Capital. And they're basically a global macro asset manager with a preference, a slant towards precious metals. And so we had a long conversation with them, and they decided to ante up. And so they financed us with the 1.5 million, a 30-cent unit. And that's, so now, we're basically, we're light. We're about 1.7, 1.8 million cash right now.
Right, okay. And so what do you need to be able to get through to, let's say, beginning of next year?
Again, I would say 1 million US. And I think the way things are looking, it'll probably be less. The costs of drilling are a lot cheaper in Bolivia than they are in Peru or North America. So I think we'll be fine until sort of that January, February period.
Okay, fine. And I mean, it's obviously not a lot of money. You said it's a very tight share register at the moment, but you're going to need to. I mean, you haven't answered the question about what's the plan here. You're not mine builders, right? But are you going to take this thing through to a PFS like you've got track record of doing?
I mean,
or
I'm not going to kid ourselves. We could build a small scale mine operation with some of the people that I have on the advisory board. They have that skill set. But no, I think we're there. I mean, our real focus is to, like typically, like a lot of people might say, but really build out a resource, and in this case, really take advantage of this, precious metal sector. And I think the timing's pretty good, as it was for us with Champion in 2006 when iron ore prices, concentrates for $28 a ton. I mean, we're sitting here with, 2,000 gold and $28 silver, which has moved up. But I think under the circumstances, more and more people are becoming interested in this sector. So I think the timing's quite good. I'm not too nervous about raising more money, but I want to do this properly. And I really, really emphasize this. I see so many companies, they're out there issuing paper, raising money. Suddenly they've got 150, 180 million market cap, or 180, 190 million shares outstanding. Oh, they've got, an inferred resource of 20 million ounces of silver. Okay, then what? We're sitting with 46 million shares outstanding with a 50 million market cap right now. I've done this 3 or 4 times in my last 20 years. I'm setting something up where I think we can, the next step will be a much larger financing. But this is solely dependent on this short-term drilling program on both.
But the financing, it's a great environment to do financing for silver and gold companies at the moment, because people are just throwing money at any old thing, quite frankly, as long as it's got the word silver and gold attached to it. But you asked the question, which is, you kind of rack this thing up to whatever level you think you can get it to. And the so what being, what was the so what bit for you? I mean, what are you going to do that others can't?
I think first of all, we have a fairly solid network down in South America, and this is through Dr. Bill Pearson. We also have a fellow called Graham Spears, who's a mining engineer, basically set up his own mining engineering outfit in Lima, Peru, a Canadian who moved down 15 years ago, married a Peruvian. And he does a lot of work with some of the majors down in South America. And I'm not going to get too into it, but there has been a couple of confidentiality agreements signed to date. Our FTP site is up. And, you know, the idea is if we can show size, I do think that a lot of majors and South American majors in particular are looking obviously to replace ounces that they have, you know, slowly depleting. So, you know, that's the type of area that that's always intrigued me. That's what I wanted to do with Champion. We did it in a roundabout way, just after the, you know, the iron ore price breakdown in 2012-13. But that's, I mean, the idea for me is, you know, time's money. The longer you're out there, the more shares are going to be issued. You really want to execute. And I do have the bench strength of our technical team, I think is very, very solid with Quinton, with Charlie Marawi, Micon International, with Dr. Osvaldo Arque, and in particular, Dr. Bill Pearson. So we're moving very, very quickly to try and enhance, you know, especially the ISKA ISKA property immediately.
Okay, so let me be really clear about what you're saying. Is that you've opened up a data room, people are looking in there, but people always do at this stage because they want a sense of what could be, and they'll keep tabs over the next 2 or 3 years. But coming back to the so what bit for you, so what do you do apart from that? What's going to drive value for the stock here?
We're laying the table, setting the table. The only thing that you can do at this stage is drill. And drill and drill and drill, and that's it. And, you know, I don't want to get ahead of myself because obviously if we get a marginal deposit, you know, I mean, we're going to have difficulties and we'll have to reassess. But we're pretty confident that ISKA ISKA has some strong upside.
Okay, so I guess that's the plan. It's early stage. It's hard really to kind of, for me to get a grip on anything. I can hear what you're saying with regards to the plan you're laying out and the financing of being able to get the drilling done on both projects, but it sounds of it, which is great.
Just one thing, Matthew. You take a look at things like Lagunas Norte or La Purina. You take a look at what David Lowell looked at, how he went after it. He was a very famous mine finder. I mean, the Purina project property, they didn't put a drill. The stock went to 300 million. I don't think they put a drill hole into the thing until the stock was trading at $12, $14. They were doing bulk sampling, just a different type of technique. So they weren't going through the 43 National Instrument 43101, inferred, indicated, you know, a different format. In today's market with sophisticated money, and for good reason, bankers and such, you know, analysts, you know, they need the protection of the National Instrument 43101. And, you know, and it's only prudent in today's environment. I mean, Dr. Bill Pearson was one of the authors of the National Instrument 43101 with the Ontario Securities Commission in 1997-98 after the BRIEX fiasco. So I understand that. So it's hard for us, like, you know, let's say trying to go for a bought deal, dealing with, you know, the institutional market. They want to see some ounces. They want to see some inferred. The only way we can do that is to drill. So that's why I'm not really trying to grab money at this minute. I'm trying to say we got enough. Let's show the model. Let's see if we're correct. Create an initial inferred, open in all directions or in certain directions, and then go to the sophisticated market.
Okay, and which is right. That's the kind of conventional way of doing things. We, you know, myself as an ex-banker would never have dreamed of financing without having something like that in place, for sure. But there are lots of conversations going on in the market because it's a bull environment, because people are excited, where companies are skipping a few stages. They are skipping out PEA and going straight to PFS, or they're skipping PFS and going to feasibility from PEA. And they're financing with that DFS because people are excited about, well, they don't want to miss this bull run we're on. So I'm just trying to, again, get a sense of, you know, what type of management you are.
On the time frame, I can help you with that a little bit. Just
Please.
The type of drilling we're doing. We're only dealing with 200-meter holes. We're dealing with basically a bulk tonnage potential shallow underground open pit type of environment. So I think that we can drill out quickly and show quickly, you know, with less CapEx, you know, ounces in the ground. And I think that's really, really important in comparison to some other models where you have to millions of meters of drilling or thousands of meters of drilling to come up with a resource.
But to your point about chasing scale, you're attracted to scale. Are you going to be able to do that with $1 million on ISKA ISKA?
Oh, absolutely not. But the million US is certainly going to tell us if we are in a very big mineralized system, which we believe to date we are.
Okay, Tom, nice first run through of the story. I appreciate that. You know, you've got a bit of work to do. You've got a bit of a track record. I think you know what you're doing. So I guess pick up the phone, let us know how you're getting on, please.
Thanks, Matthew.